Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Let's Play Shadowrun Dragonfall Director's Cut. In the previous episode we finished off the Loose Ends mission with the ending of Torvald Enstad and got ambushed on the way back. Not by any friends of his, but by somebody else entirely. And like I said in the previous episode, hold up. Dang sneezes build up and then just disappear on you. Anyways, and like I said in the previous episode, I have used a save from a previously failed recording in order to get back that 3 extra karma. Other than that, there's no real difference. I still spent it on ranged combat and charisma, so there's that. I already talked to Samuel. And I'm actually having to re-record this, so I can actually save us some time on the fact that we don't have to talk to any merchants, so I know who to talk to. As for our character's upgrades, we can either get Sharpshooter, which gets a custom sniper rifle for Iger, some extra damage, extra capacity, armor piercing, or we can go for the Cyberware Wired Reflexes, which passively gives her +1 movement. And when triggered, the user will dodge the first attack against them each round. Costs 1 AP, duration of 3, cooldown of 4. Honestly, I think I'm going to go for this, if only for the extra movement, because that's always been a problem with Iger. For Dietrich, we can get Conductivity, which increases the radius of Electrocore by 1 tile in all directions, or Static, which reduces its AP cost down to 1. Honestly, I'm going to say go for that. Because that's the primary reason I haven't really been using it, because AP costs and I typically have to move them around before I can use it. For Glory, we can either get an augment for her Adrenaline Pump, which either makes it last for an additional round for a total of 4 rounds with a cooldown of 5, or we can give her the ability Revive, where she can use her Adrenaline Pump on a downed ally to revive them at 25% HP. But it shares a cooldown with her regular Adrenaline Pump ability. Honestly, I'm just using her Adrenaline Pump for the extra AP, so having it for an extra round is going to be useful. Blitz, we can either give him a deck upgrade, which gets him a Fairlight Excalibur Cyber deck, replacing his old Virtua X Cyber deck, or we can give him an Hydraulic Jack Cyberware, which increases his move speed by 4 as a 0 AP action for 1 round. Honestly, I think I'm going to go for the deck upgrade, because when it comes to regular combat, I'm primarily using Max for that, and I'm more using Blitz for, you know, the digital world. So, yeah, I'm going to go for the Cyber deck. Confirm all, and that should be that. Alright, first off, let's start by talking to Lane. Let's see, Lane looks to have mostly recovered from whatever happened the other day. A few butterfly stitches keep closed the lacerations on his face, and his damaged prosthetic looks to be functioning normally once again. And what brings you around today? Want to talk about what happened the other day. The old soldier glowers, but given his physical handicaps and his recent injuries, he hardly makes for an intimidating figure, troll size notwithstanding. Hang my hoop, I'm not a child woman, I'm not helpless, and even if I was, leave me to whatever fate I've earned. Who was it? Someone who heard an unfounded rumor. A rumor about me joining up with Orc, presumed favorite pulley club among us trogs. Maybe he was humanist, or maybe just another flux fanatic who thought the balance of power would be upset by me joining up with Orc. I don't know, and I don't care. I just want to be left alone. What do they want? He wanted to dissuade me from lending my voice or my experience to any pro-meta-human parties. I tried to talk him down, tried to explain my fighting days are done, but he wouldn't believe me. Bastard made a liar of me when I beat him with my crutch. Will they be back? Not if they know it's good for them. Last time they caught me alone, taking a shortcut through an alley. I won't make that mistake again. I'm sticking close to home, and close to Samuel and his people. They won't shy away from a fight. Alright, we'll leave it at that. Want to hear more about your part in the Euro Wars? Lane sighs, his weight settling on creaky legs. The problem with a tight-knit community like the Kreuzbazar is that you can't escape who you are. Fine, you want to hear it? I'll tell it. The old troll leans heavy on his crutch, takes a steadying breath. I was a colonel in the Finnish army during the First Year of War. The Jaeger Brigade was mine. For decades we'd used ATVs, Nasus and Bandwagons mostly. Slow, lumbering things, but built for the snows of the Lapland. I was the one who changed all that, moving us over to T-birds. I made us fast and nimble. The Russians were still slow, and though they had us outnumbered and outgunned, we could run circles around them. Not sure when, and I'm not sure who, but the comparison was made to Rommel. Arctic Fox followed soon thereafter. Ugh, not sure that's really somebody you want to be compared to. For those of you who don't know what he is, do some research. But I don't celebrate the title. Far too many young soldiers died under the command of the Arctic Fox. This is why some ask me to fight. This is why I refuse. I won't take up any more of your time. See, next up, we're going to be talking to Simi. The girl stares blankly into the vacant sky. She's still sporting a black eye and there are fresh tears on her cheeks, but she doesn't seem to notice them. Kim? Are you alright? She shakes her head. I don't know. Have I ever been when I'm me? She then lowers her gaze from the heavens and regards you, her eyes showing slightly more clarity than before. Been thinking, remembering, wondering. What have you been thinking about? Kim hugs herself tightly around her midsection, drawing herself in and doing the impossible of making herself even thinner. I'm not sure I want to talk about it. I only ever talked about it with Monica. I'm here to listen, just like Monica was. Okay. She takes a breath to ready herself and then bites a lip as her eyes search the unseen. Monica said I would forget. She thought the Sims might help. In there, I'm strong, and I never have to lose anyone. But then I come back out. Here, where the children play in the streets and I remember. Where I see Doc Escabel, and I remember. He was mad at me for losing her, but now I don't know if he even remembers. He looks right through me, but I did what he told me. I saw him every month. I took the medicine. I got as much food as I could, but he said it wasn't enough, that I would never be. Monica says a mother is always a mother, even when her baby dies inside her. She said she would go to heaven. I'm sorry, Kim. Anything I can do? No, I'm okay. Thank you. Do you want to talk about that black eye now? Zach said not to. He said I might get hurt again. Did he do that to you? What? No, of course not. Zach wouldn't hurt a fly. But the man who did this knew Zach. He said they used to work together before they came to the Kreuzbazaar. But he said he wasn't allowed to stay because of Monica. She said he was bad for the Kreuzbazaar, and the man didn't like that. Now he wants to come back. He wants to be the new Zach. He told me he had better stuff. Let me try it. But then she touches a finger to her black eye. He said to tell Zach that he was coming back to take what was his. Don't worry, Kim. We won't let him come back. If you say so. I'll leave you be. Alright, nothing new in the shops, and the only other person to really talk to would be Kami, who should be right around here somewhere. There she is. Hey there, Altug was just telling me you were around. I was wondering if you might be willing to trade a story or two. Alright, you first. What's the deal with you and Altug? Well, the whole ears and hands thing, plus the barista junk. I knew that already. Well, alright. I suppose I heard a lot about you around the Kreuzbazaar. It's only fair you know a bit about me. I never really went to school. Pretty much been a street kid as long as I can remember, and there was so much to learn from people outside of school that I never really bothered. Makes it difficult to get a job, so as all good street kids do, I chose a place to haunt with my friends and always hung out there. That was Altug's cafe, and he was super nice about me and mine. I felt more comfortable with him than I did with mine Fata. Her eyes narrow only for a briefest moment at the word, and we talked a lot when I was waiting around for my friends. He must have been fairly comfortable with me too, otherwise he wouldn't have offered me a job. And really, what is it that you do? Technically, I'm the barista, but like I said before, ears and hands. I run his errands, I gather gossip, and sometimes I even make coffee. I much prefer his hookah options, though. Real coffee makes me feel paranoid. Speaking of which, I should probably get back to work. See you around. There's more to talk about with her. Hey pal, I missed you. Got any new stories for me? Actually, I'm curious about Altug. I'm gonna change this up. Kami purses her lip. Not a lot I can tell you that you haven't already guessed. Resident Spymaster, coffee brewer, outsider, the official Turk of the Kreuz Bazaar. Well, that's not news to me. Yeah, I doubted it. She winks exaggeratedly. You're too smart for me. But you want to know why, right? It works for him. He had to make some sort of living here in the Kreuz Bazaar, you know. He's not got a trade skill, and he's not goblinized, so he couldn't hang with Beckenbauer. If he opened a normal shop, he'd be ousted by someone thinking he's stealing their job because he's not German. A coffee shop was a good option because it's obvious. He stays exotic and does what they expect of him, with the intel and stuff. She pulls absentmindedly at some hair on her face. Sorry about the intel dump. It's not really useful information, and you'd probably guessed anyway, at this point. But you asked, so... You've been a real doll. Gotten way too much information out of me, though. I'll see you around, yeah? Nothing else. Talking about who is interesting to talk to would just have her bring up talking to old people because they got interesting stories. That's about it. Anyways, with that, let us head back to the safe house and talk to our own people. As usual, we'll hit up Blitz first, as he's right there. One look at Blitz's face is enough to tell you that something is gnawing at him. Oh, and before I forget, the whole Frau Muller thing doesn't show up until after you talk to Paul. At least I think so, because if you go to the coffee shop now, she's not there. One look at Blitz's face is enough to tell you that something is gnawing at him. He stands beside his table, playing with a coffee spoon. Hoi, Talia, what you need? What's going on, Blitz? Well, I hate to admit it, but I might be in a bit of trouble here. Go on. There's an awkward pause, then Blitz plows on ahead. Well, you remember those creditors I told you about? The ones who loaned me all of that money? Yes? Yeah, well, as it turns out, some of them are a little less forgiving than I thought they were. Keep talking. Well, one in particular seems to have taken things kind of personally. How personally are we talking here? I got a package in the mail. It had somebody's thumbs in it. Thumbs? Yeah, thumbs. They came in a cigar box, packed in salt. I have no idea who they belong to. I'm pretty sure that they're meant to convey some sort of message. Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet. I don't want to lose my thumbs, Chief. I like my thumbs. I think that I need to pay this guy back. No kidding. Luckily, I've got a plan. I know how to get myself out of hot water with Meat Grinder. I've got it all spec'd out. Wait, let me get this straight. You took a loan from somebody named Meat Grinder? Hey, Chief, come on. I feel bad enough about this already. There's no need to rub it in. Anyway, like I was saying, I can make it all right again, but I'll need your help to do it. I'm listening. Well, there's this group out in Dragonfall. They call themselves the Landenberg Ring. They're a financial crime organization, and there's a lot of bad blood between them and Meat Grinder's operation. Anyway, back when I was running with the Schwarzherzen, I laid out the groundwork for a hit on the Landenberg Ring, or Landberg Ring. I was never able to make good on it, though. For some reason, none of the other gangers ever volunteered to help out. With your help, I could steal enough money from them to cover my debt and get myself back into Meat Grinder's good graces in the process. So, what do you think? A quick run, just you and me, with me in the Matrix, and you as my woman on the ground. We hit them, satisfy my debt, and laugh about it on our way back home. Sound like a plan? Alright, but in the future, you need to be more upfront with me about things like this. No problem, Chief. Not a problem at all. You can count on me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some last-minute stuff to take care of before we get started. Oh, and Talia? Thanks. No sweat, Blitz. Meet you at the U-Bahn? Oh, no, not as such, Chief. I won't be physically going to Dragonfall. I've seen enough of that place for one lifetime. I'll be jacking in from a terminal that I set up here in the Kreuz Bazaar. Great. Okay, well, I guess I'll send you a comm when I get there. Sounds good, Chief. Thanks again. Right. Anyways, moving on. You can't talk to him about the previous run, so there's no point in doing so. Let's see. Dante, who's a good boy? You are. Dietrich? Even though he wasn't on the last run, you can actually ask him about his thoughts on it. Hell of a thing, wasn't it? The run made me glad that I don't have to spend a lot of time in hospitals, I'll tell you that much. There wasn't a single aspect of that building that didn't make me feel uneasy. He pauses for a moment, then looks you in the eye. Kind of a pity putting that rigger on ice like that. Least we could have done was hurt him out. I get that the job is the job and all, but if our client really did screw him over, he deserved better than to get buried for it. He shrugs. Guess we'll never know. Hey, I was thinking about what you told me earlier. You said that your idol was going to make you pick a fight that you couldn't win. He shrugs. It's bound to happen eventually, probably sooner rather than later. Is there something that you can do to stop that from happening? Well, I suppose I could refuse, but that probably wouldn't be a good idea, especially not now. Remember, boss, the Dragon Slayer is where my magic comes from. If I turn away from him, you'd better believe that he'll turn away from me. Besides which, I don't even know if I can refuse him anymore. He's been with me for so long, I don't know where he stops and I begin. He grins at you. Don't you worry about me, boss. I've known that this was coming for my entire life. When it happens, I'll go down in a blaze of glory the likes of which you can't even imagine. That's a promise. You can't really believe that your idol wants you to commit suicide. Of course not. The Dragon Slayer doesn't want me to die, but he does want me to kill dragons. That ain't supposed to be safe or easy. It isn't my fault. It isn't my idol's fault that I'm getting too old to keep up with his wishes. What if you were to pick a fight with a different kind of dragon? Say, maybe a gang or a corporation? He pauses for a moment. That's an interesting idea. If it were big enough and heinous enough, he might be satisfied. I never tried to bargain or negotiate with the Dragon Slayer before. I'm not sure how to feel about it, and I don't know how he'd take it either. The Dragon Slayer doesn't like to be questioned, and his temper's even shorter than mine. But I'll tell you what, boss, I'll think about it. Nothing new on Alexander. You can ask him about the Lodge. Lodge. He freezes up. Boss, do you mean the Black Lodge? I don't know. Maybe. Lodge was all that I heard. Let me describe them to you. You can tell me if what I'm saying fits. Shadowy, powerful, secretive as hell, with deep pockets and a penchant for hiding the truth. They conduct all their business through dupes and go-betweens. Gives you a sideways glance. Does that sound about right? That's them in a nutshell, yeah. Well, if it's them, and whoever you're talking about, I ain't saying it is, then I advise you stay away from them. Stay far, far away, and whatever you do, don't take their money. If you do, they'll own you. I take it they're dangerous, then. He sighs. More than you could know. Most folks don't even believe that they exist, but being a shaman in Berlin has its perks. I've seen enough evidence to believe. Tell me what you heard about them. Well, the story is that the Black Lodge is the mother of all conspiracies. Supposedly, they've been around for hundreds of years, and they've been practicing magic since well before the Awakening. Impossible, I know, but I believe it. You ever heard of the Masons, the Knights Templar, the Bavarian Illuminati? They were all puppets of the Black Lodge. None of them knew who they were working for, but the Lodge was there, pulling the strings. They always have been, and they still are today. That's the story. I didn't realize you were a conspiracy theorist, Dietrich. I ain't, but I've been around long enough to know that I should trust my gut, and it's telling me that the Black Lodge is real. Your mileage may vary, of course. Believe whatever you want. You already know what I think. Okay then. Next up, Iger. Talia, any thoughts on that last run? It was a nice change of pace. Simple job with a straightforward objective. At the end of the day, the whole thing was pretty by the numbers. The rigger died, and we got paid, and everyone went home happy. That's a win in my book. Do you trust me, Iger? She pauses for a moment, considering. Finally, she nods. Yeah, I do. You've earned that much. I haven't always agreed with your decisions, Talia, but you've proven your competence. It's only fair for me to acknowledge it. Then tell me what happened to your team. This again? Why do you even care, Talia? Because it's pretty clear that if you had your way, you'd still be with them, and a good leader places a priority on knowing her team. She nods slowly. All right, I'll tell you. I suppose that you deserve to know. What happened to us was Hoffman. He was a rookie, the kid of some big-money corporate exec. He looked good on paper and made it through KSK training, so he was technically qualified to join a team. but he was way too green to fit in with ours. Still, he wanted to be a hero, and his family had enough clout to get him an assignment of his choosing. I don't know how many strings Hoffman's daddy had to pull to get him assigned to our team, but he pulled them. Hoffman became our 9th squad mate, despite Metzger's objections. Anyway, flash forward a few weeks, we were closing in on one of the Russian mob's major trafficking operations. They had been using a series of warehouses, 50 miles from the border, as a staging area for their convoys. Women and girls from Eastern Europe were being housed there. When the convoys came, they'd be crammed into cargo containers and hauled across the border into Germany. Go to any brothel along the border and have a look around. Chances are you'll find at least a few girls who spent some time in those warehouses. Slovakians, Hungarians, Poles, you name it. The mob has been smuggling them over for decades. But we were in a position to derail their operation, and we weren't going to let our new addition slow us down. We hit them by surprise, and we hit them hard. Fisher and Braun managed to take down the Banshee that they had patrolling the site. Wolf had reconnaissance drones overhead, providing battle tac feeds to the rest of us, and we picked off their gunmen one by one. Ugh. They had numbers on us, but they didn't know where to hit us. We had eyes in the sky, and we had cover and concealment. Every time they thought they had a fix on us, we'd shift positions and hit them again. They might as well have been fighting ghosts. Then Hoffman broke cover and gave away our position, and after that, all hell broke loose. Wolf went down first. The sound of it will haunt me for the rest of my days. An explosion, a choked scream, and then this long, drawn-out gurgling sound. When he died, his drones went down with him, and there were too many hostiles to track without them. I'll spare you the gory details, Talia. Suffice to say that my team was wiped out. Iger's face clouds again. You can see the tears beginning to well in her eyes. I watched Metzger die. With a visible effort, she clamps down on her emotions and calms herself. When she speaks again, her voice is flat. I took 3 rounds myself, had to drag myself back across the Oder-Neisse line into Germany. I almost died. So that's the story. My KSK career died with the rest of the team. Our mission was illegal, after all, off the books. There was no going back for me, so I wound up here. She looks you in the eye, her tone is impassive. Did that tell you everything you wanted to know, fearless leader? Are you satisfied now? Yes, thank you, Iger. So tell me, what's your takeaway from my tale of woe? I figure that you've got to have one. When Monica died, you blamed me because I was new to the team. But I'm not Hoffman, Iger. Yeah, she nods. I know that. And you are right, to a point. I might have judged you too harshly because of Hoffman, but everything else that I said was justified. Giving you command of this team was a hasty decision made for the wrong reasons. I stand by that assessment. But between then and now, I've been watching you like a hawk. And you've grown, Talia. You weren't the right choice to lead before. I still believe that. But you are now. Thanks, Iger. Good talk. She nods. Until next time. And lastly, Glory. This is gonna be a lengthy one, and I hope my voice holds out for it. Any thoughts on the last one? There isn't much to say. She pauses to study you for a moment before continuing. I think we should have given Thorvald a chance to prove his claims. Waiting a few minutes to kill him wouldn't have harmed anything. That said, I understand why you did what you did. The job was to kill him. We all knew that when we signed on. She shrugs. We're one step closer to paying Alice's fee. In the end, that's all that really matters. Let's see, you two, Glory, how are things with you? She pauses for a moment, considering. You know what? I'm happy, actually. For the first time in a long time. I have you to thank for that. Are you ready to tell me about that chrome you're sporting? Be patient, Talia. The explanation for that is coming. A look of unease flits across her face. I'm not sure that you're going to like it, though. You need time, and I gave you time. Are you ready to talk about Feuerstelle yet? Yeah. Glory looks troubled, more so than you've ever seen her before. Whatever memory she's dredging up must be exceedingly painful. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been looking forward to this, but yeah, it's time. Okay, I'm gonna need a drink before I start with this. Okay, Talia, look, I'm about to tell you some things about myself that might change your opinion of me. It's entirely possible that you're going to hate me based on what's coming up next. I've accepted that, and if that's what happens, I sincerely believe that I deserve it. She looks you in the eye, her expression grim. So tell me, Are you sure that you want to keep pushing forward with this? This is important for you, Glory. After everything we've been through, I think that we both know that. Whatever you have to tell me, I'm ready to listen. Thanks, Talia. Thanks for being a friend. So, when we left off last time, I had just moved from the streets of Tübingen to the warm, inviting confines of Feuerstell. Marta and I were happy there for a little while, and Harrow embraced me as a long-lost daughter. I should probably take a moment to talk more about Harrow. He's going to be an important figure in this story. I don't know what his age was. He seemed old enough to be paternal, but young enough to hang with the kids on something like a peer level. Best guess, I'd say he was in his mid-20s. He was handsome and well-built, with a neatly trimmed beard and thick brown hair. There was something else about him, something uncanny. Harrow had this charisma, this raw, magnetic attraction that just made people latch on to him. I saw it over and over. All it took was a few words and a pat on the shoulder, and Harrow would have a new convert. The other kids at the farm followed him around like lost puppies. As much as I loved Marta, and as much as I thought she loved me, we forgot all about one another when Harrow was around. All that we wanted was to be close to him, to be part of his inner circle. And soon enough, we were. For a girl of 17, it was all terribly exciting. Harrow had these rules of living that he would teach us. Rules about self-determination, and the importance of disobedience. He claimed to have taught classes at the University of Berlin, which he painted as a mix between an earthly paradise and an anarchist playground. He told us how Feuerstell would be the focal point of a new movement for the children of the fatherland. He told us that we were special. We ate it up, of course. We were kids. For those of us in the inner sanctum, Harrow would share even more. He had power the likes of which I had never seen. Not my father's drunken fists or my own childish experiments, but genuine, incredible power. He said that it came from the Horned God, an ancient deity that he venerated. He knew about my latent abilities right away, and he offered to teach me. Naturally, I accepted. I've heard of the Horned God. His followers have a poor reputation, especially among women. Any bad reputation that they might have gained is well deserved. There was more to it than that. As you'll see, Glory sighs. Hang with me, Talia. Rough waters ahead. So I became Harrow's apprentice. He taught me to channel magic and summon spirits. He taught me rituals and pagan traditions, Machiavellian philosophy, and Nietzschean ethics. Above all, he taught me to connect with his Horned God, and through it I learned power and arrogance. And it was all downhill from there. For the next few years I lived at Feuerstell as Harrow's enforcer and right-hand girl. I was also his sometimes wife and concubine, but that was a distinction that I shared with all the girls in the commune, including my beloved Marta. I came to learn that she'd been his long before she met me, but by that point, I didn't care. I'd embraced the rules of living. I was Harrow's creature through and through. I didn't ask questions, and I walked the path that was in front of me. Other fun facts about those years: I learned cruelty. I had power now, and my new idol encouraged me to use it. Harrow did the same. Any children who didn't pull their weight were subject to my tender mercies. And I was anything but tender. I took what I wanted rather than asking for it. I liked it. It was fun. I also came to learn that Harrow's Horned God was not the Eichenfürst, worshipped by throwback cults across Germany. It was certainly a god with horns, but it came from an altogether different tradition. Care to hazard a guess? The devil? In the magically active community, we refer to it as the adversary. But yeah, same being, more or less. So my idol was the ancient deity. My idol, the ancient deity that was feeding me my power, was the antithesis of everything that is right and good. And you know what? I didn't care. In our time together, Harrow and I committed more atrocities than I could count. At this point, I was onto all of his tricks. I knew that Feuerstell was nothing more than a honey trap, carefully designed to lure local children into my master's clutches. And I knew that the kids who seemed resistant to Harrow's brainwashing techniques wound up fertilizing the garden. I knew that Harrow's entire manifesto was bullshit. And I knew that through it all, Harrow and the adversary were laughing, because I was laughing right there beside them. I don't want to pin the blame for my decisions on anyone but me. That said, I would like to posit that my father's connection to the Kreuzritters might have helped play into my willingness to serve the adversary. In my warped, indoctrinated little brain, I equated the church with evil. So the opposite of that, I figured, had to be, well, if not good, then at least not totally bad. But I was kidding myself, of course. My new deity was the very definition of bad. Serving it made me bad. End of story. I can't excuse the choices you made, but I can't understand why you made them. That's big of you, Talia. I genuinely mean that. Glory takes a moment to steel herself, then continues on. Anyway, one day Harrow invited me on a field trip to Stuttgart. Over the years that I was at Feuerstelle, the commune had easily doubled in size. It was thriving, all thanks to the efforts of Marta and the girls like her. Harrow would send the girls out to neighboring cities to lure in the street kids that nobody would miss. He targeted children because they were easy to indoctrinate, and because nothing makes the adversary happier than the corruption of the innocent. As we drove out to pick up the new recruits, I was already planning ahead. It was a foregone conclusion that I would pay my father a visit. The irony of a group of Kreuzritters getting immolated by a genuine servant of the actual devil tickled me to no end. So when Harrow stopped to fill up on diesel, I hopped out of the van and headed out on foot to my parents' place. Harrow wasn't overly concerned about my absence. I had long since reached the point where I could assert my autonomy, and he knew that I'd be back. I wound up at my folks' house sometime around noon. I could hear the adversary whispering in my ear, telling me what to do. I'd long since learned to listen to its voice. It always rewarded me with extra power when I did its bidding. It told me to knock, so I did. As the door opened, I could feel a torrent of flames welling up in the astral plane all around me. It told me to channel them into the doorway, into my father. So I did. But of course, the person who opened the door wasn't my father. It was my mother. As I watched her flesh blacken and melt, I heard her scream and I broke into hysterics. I heard the adversary laugh. And at that moment, I realized that it was laughing at me. Tragic, but predictable. Glory nods, a grim expression on her delicate face. In hindsight, yes, you're right. It was inevitable that this would happen. I was a fool and a puppet. And my power that I thought I'd had was on loan from a being that craved my own misery. It was like a lever had been pulled. All at once, the bubble popped. I wasn't a powerful servant of the adversary. I was not Harrow's #1 girl. I was a ridiculous little fool who'd willingly tied her soul to the worst thing in existence. Realizing this was one thing. Actually fixing it was something else entirely. I knew that I had to get away from Harrow. That was the first thing to do. So I bit my lip and did my best to ignore the happy babble of the new recruits on the trip back to Feuerstelle. And I managed to get through the ride without screaming. Once we were back at the commune, I broke into Harrow's safe and stole all the commune's resources, and ran. I don't know when Harrow realized what I'd done, or whether he even cared. All that I know is that nobody came after me. So I kept running, and running, until I got to Berlin. Getting past the wall was fairly simple. You know how easy it is to obtain falsified papers. The biggest obstacle that I faced during my flight was the adversary itself. I could run from Harrow, but how do you run from something that's tied to your own soul? I have a feeling that I know. The haunted look in Glory's eyes is heartbreaking. She gives you another curt, grim nod. I walked into the office of the first street doc I could find, pointed at all the biggest, bulkiest pieces of cyberware that he had on display, and told him to put them into me. He tried to upsell me on better merchandise, arguing that what I was asking for was old and inefficient, better suited to be installed in a museum than in a body. He told me that I'd be shredding my essence, and that once it was gone, I'd never be able to get it back. I stuck to my guns. After all, shredding my essence was the whole point. Glory looks up at you. Her eyes are sunken and hollow. The aura of loss about her is palpable. She looks like a woman who has been through hell. That's all for now, Talia. You've heard this tale, and you know why I am the way I am. You know the things I've done and how much I have to atone for. If you still want my company, fine. If I've lost your friendship, I understand that too. But for now, I need to be alone. Yeah, I can understand that. That was one hell of an exposition dump for us. So, with that, we are actually out of time for this episode. If you guys like what you see, please leave a like, subscribe for future content. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to get notifications for when I upload, or to hit the straw poll link to vote for our next Let's Play. And please, leave a comment down below this video. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching.